Good evening. This is Edward and Ann, and it's Monday evening, the 3rd of January 2022. So we're going to just do a short meditation this evening. I'd say it's a word from the trenches, although lately a lot of the words that come are all from the trenches, because we're in the battle. We're in the warfare of the kingdom. We're moving into the destiny of the sons of God, and that's very much connected into the sons themselves waking up and realizing what truly is at hand. The difficulty that we all face, of course, is coming up higher out of the plane of confusion and the plane of soul and emotion, and come up into the realm of spirit, where you're really able to discern all things. And as we move higher and higher into the realm of the Father's kingdom, we don't really have the option to say, well, I'll be aware of this, but I'm not really interested in this or this. Because basically all things become available, become recognizable as you move into the realm of the Father's kingdom. It just happens. It's a cause and effect. You come up higher and the veil is drawn back, and whatever is there that the Holy Spirit wants you to see or learn, understand, is there, and you see it for what it is. So, in this whole scope of spiritual warfare, the one thing about it is we really don't have the choice to say, yes, I want to be in the battle, or no, I don't. As a son, there's a certain plateau or plane that you enter where you also enter the realm of conflict. While we have been in transition, in a state of maturing, there has been a great deal of protection surrounding each of the sons. And what removes that, so to speak, is the maturing of the sons, where they come to the plane or level where they're truly able to enter into the warfare for the kingdom. It's very, far-reaching. It is the battle of light versus dark, but it's the battle for the taking of the kingdom. The violent take the kingdom by force. We know that scripture well. Well, as we continue to mature in God, we don't have a choice to say, okay, Lord, I really don't want to enter into the battle, but I do like all the other benefits. It just comes with the territory. With the maturity of sonship comes the activation of your calling, as God positions you in the realm of spirit to really begin to make a difference, to see what's happening and to move accordingly. And I don't know how many there are that really have broken into a real effective level of warring in the spirit. I know there are some, but I know that God will not bring someone into something until he is prepared. He will not put upon anyone something that they're not able to handle and deal with. But when that place of maturing and purification has come forth, then you're automatically caught up into that level where you really begin to make a difference in the spirit. Up until then, you're flexing your wings, your legs, your arms, getting ready. But when that time of readiness is at hand, God then takes you and moves you into the next level where you really begin to be a force in the spirit of effectiveness. So we're going to talk just about one aspect that comes up often. It comes up often because it is at the heart of so much of the conflict that we deal with. And it's so important that we discern and see this correctly so we really understand. You would think that, well, when you enter into the battle, everything becomes more clear, and you can aim your scope on it to take it out, but actually in the higher levels of the spirit realm, where the real conflict is taking place, it's more and more subtle than we understand. Now, granted, there is a place of discernment, of open vision, where you begin to really, see the spirit world much more clearly. But so much of the conflict that the sons are partaking of right now is in the realm of, shall we say, subtlety, because it's not that easy to discern what the enemy is doing. He endeavors to always stay hidden behind a smokescreen, behind the curtain, so you really don't recognize that what you're fighting is a spirit world. Rather, he comes to shine the light upon yourself and make you look at whatever you're going through from a different perspective. Like it's your problem, this random issue that's happening, or something that takes it away from recognizing that it's part of the spiritual warfare of the kingdom. So it's very subtle. And that's how Satan has always worked, to be subtle and hidden, to where you don't really recognize that you're warring with the spirit world. Rather, you're dealing with issues on the physical plane, or health issues, or things that present a certain type of reality, but it's not the truth. And so what we're dealing with tonight is something that we've been dealing with for a long time. I'd say, all of God's sons have been dealing with this issue since the beginning of the sojourn, because it affects everyone. And that is the realm of transference, which the enemy is so adept at utilizing. And transference basically is where you can take something off of someone and put it on someone else. Just like Christ when he died, and the transference of his righteousness and so forth is, transferred to us. On the flip side of that, you have the darkness, the evil that can be transferred to the believer as he is contending before God. Or it can be presented in such a way that you just don't recognize what you're dealing with. You don't see it. And so you end up kind of, punching at the air, trying to land a solid punch, but you're not really sure where you're hitting. I don't know if some of you can relate to that, but what we want to address here is something that we've talked about many, many times, and it has to do with the jeopardy of bonds. The soul bond, the bond, it's created by obligation, emotion, ties, you name it. And bonds can both be created by yourself as you reach out and you don't know how to relate, so you start relating to some level on the soul. Or someone can be reaching out to you to relate to you, and they don't know how to relate without bonds, without this feeding connection thing that goes on. And so they reach out, and unless you're really acutely aware, there's this attachment happens, aka bond. And unless you're really aware of it, it'll just hang in there. It's not something you created or you reached out and did, but it was something that attached itself to you. And unless you're really aware and sensitive, you won't recognize it at first. So these things are part of the real conflict and the real battle that the sons of God face. Now, to get more finite with this, and the real issue is a word that we brought in a few of the books, having to do with the daisy chain effect. And I think we addressed that in the first book. What is the daisy chain? In this application in the word, we're talking about the connection of one item to another. Let's say a piece of metal, and you have it firmly attached to the next piece, and that's firmly attached to the next piece, and it can go on into infinity. And so what happens is if you, let's say, were to put heat to one of the first pieces within that daisy chain, that heat will transfer all the way up the line, and you'll feel the heat tend down or whatever. So what is the point of that? As we brought out in the word before, the point is that the real jeopardy the sons face in this issue of bonds and your vulnerability comes from the connection of those who bond to you, or you bond to them. So let's say you're a little sympathetic towards someone, or some little bond thing that's going on, and you kind of feed off of it, or or the person feeds off of it. So you can say, well, what's happening there? Well, there's this thing that's created, which we call a bond, that is between you and this other person. However it's created, whether it's something you've done in reaching out to them, whether you're feeding off the relationship, whether you are sympathetic to whatever situations they are, or whether they're reaching out to you and connecting through the same types of channels. So what happens? Well, the real problem here is who they are connected to, and who those people are connected to, and so on and so forth. So you can be connected to someone on a very subtle level with some kind of a little bond that you've kept alive, for some reason. But the real jeopardy comes because that attachment, that connection, opens you up tenfold down the road. The issue may not be the immediate person, or the person after that, who are all connected together. It could be someone 10 steps down the chain who is demon oppressed, or any other number of issues. And as you are connected in some kind of bond to person one, you thereby become open to, let's say, the person 10 steps down that chain. And what is in that person, what that person's dealing with, can come right back up the chain and affect you directly. And the enemy knows how to do that, how to manipulate the transference. And in so doing, he is able to create blindness until you find that you're running, but you don't quite see things real clearly, because there's this garbage that has attached itself to you through bonds and connections and familiarity that begins to affect you, and it may be coming from someone 10, 20, connections down that road. That is something that is very subtle. People don't really know or understand what that is, but it's something we're constantly battling, because it's like it really takes a deep work of the cross for you to die out to that familiar level that loves people. Maybe you're a shepherd, whatever, and so you find it difficult to separate yourself from God's compassion to that of you being really concerned for and sympathetic to a person and their situation, until you've opened up this familiar type of relationship. The word talks about relationships that are unequally yoked. Even we're not talking even relationships that are friends fall into that scenario. And so the warfare that comes against you, and you might be scratching your head, where am I bonded? Where is this? What door is this coming through? Who is it? And you look in your immediate circle of friends, acquaintances, or people, and you say, okay, who is it in here that's causing this to hit me? And not realizing that it may not be the first level or the second or the fifth level, but someone's got some connection somewhere that is bringing a great deal of filth and baggage, and it affects you, and you begin to carry the signs of warfare on your body, and you're trying to get free, and you don't know how to get free because you're not sure exactly how you became bound in the first place. You're not seeing and understanding that it's a function of these soul bond, familiar relationships that become the seed bed for a tremendous amount of transference to work against the sons of God, to the end that they begin to be partially blinded, and so they're kind of missing it. It's like you see, but you don't quite see. So you're off just enough that it affects everything. As you go down that road, the compass is off just a little bit, and all of a sudden, after a period of time, you might be 20 miles off, because it's been a gradual pulling, and it's been so hidden that you haven't realized what you're in the midst of. And so this is really our concern this evening in the warfare that we are facing and that we are going through. And the only one that can really bring a real clear answer is the Lord. He has to reveal what it is that's coming in, or how it's coming. And he may not give you the name of the entity or person, but he'll at least open your understanding to understand that you need to seek and really find out where the open door is so that you can close it. Because what's at stake here right now is a deep level of sight that must open up for the sons of God. Because the changes that are slated to happen are going to happen to those who have eyes to see, who see the Lord on that level and can change. But if your sight or your vision is compromised to any extent, you're going to miss it. You're not going to see what you need to see. And in not seeing, you're not going to change. And the enemy knows that. He knows how easy it is to take the sons of God offline, because all he has to do is get him distracted or sidelined to where they can be greatly affected by the transference coming from someone else. But yet, because of the ties and the bonds, they're connected into that. And so they begin to run the race impaired. And that's the last thing that we need at this time, is to continue running this race impaired or compromised with bonds and the channel that bonds become conduits of. So that really is what we're addressing this evening, and we just want to lay it out. You can look to the Lord about it. But it's all very hidden, and the Lord has to reveal it to you by the Spirit. He's got to pull that curtain back until you really see how the spirit world is operating. How are they effectively hitting the sons and making it difficult for them to change or to move into the next steps? This is really a very deep level of the spiritual warfare, because the whole goal is keep the sons of God out of moving into their destiny as the sons who wield all authority and dominion and power. Keep them out of that level. What do you have to do to keep them out of that level? They can still believe everything. They can listen to words. They can, assent to everything, but just keep them out of that level where they're able to really see, and in seeing, get turned loose, ignited, and truly become the ones that, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. We're taking the kingdom by force, but only in conjunction with the discernment and knowledge that is necessary to move with pinpoint accuracy. That's why the bond issue is so important. That's why we've talked about it for 21 years, many times over. And honestly, these words come because this is what Ann and I are facing. And we'll hit a plateau, and then God will reveal. And we'll see, oh my gosh, bonds again. We were missing it. We didn't see it. It was coming through these deep levels that were just seemingly hidden. And so you go back to, square one. You go through and you deal with the connections. And the only way you get out of going around the mountain on this is that you progressively die out by the work of the cross. So progressively, less and less of the soul is moving in authority, and more your spirit begins to move in the ascendancy. That's why we must be spiritual beings. We must be what we are already. So we send this blessing to you and to those who are being raised up as God's army during this time, that we move. How does the word go? Harmless as doves and wise as serpents. So we clearly can see what is happening, how it's happening, how these things are affecting us. So we can move with an authority that just cuts it to the quick. So with this, we send you our blessing, Ann and I, and we anticipate this year to be the year of finality. It's time. It is time. Amen.